In today's lesson, we're going to start Chapter 4 by looking at multiples of 10, 100, and 1000. Our essential question for this chapter is, how can I communicate multiplication? So that's a question you should be keeping in the back of your mind. What is a multiple? Multiple is really a synonym for product, and the product is the answer when you multiply. So a multiple is a product or set of products of a number and any other whole number. If I wanted to list the multiples of 2, I would write the number 2 and a colon to show that I'm going to make a list. To list the multiples, I'm going to multiply 2 by the numbers in order. So 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 5 is 10. And so on and so forth. So when you're listing multiples, you're just listing the product of 2 and other numbers. If I wanted to know the multiples of 6, I would do the same thing. 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 5 is 30, and so on. So again, multiple is a synonym for product, which is the answer when you multiply. So the multiples of a given number are the product of that number and any other whole numbers. When you multiply by multiples of 10, 100, and 1000, you're going to notice a pattern about the products. So let's choose a number between 2 and 5. Let's say 4. Let's find the product of your number and 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Now let's find the product of 4 and 10. When I'm finding the product of greater numbers such as these, multiples of 10, 100, and 1000, I can multiply the basic fact that I have first. So again, 4 times 1, and then you're going to write a 0 for each 0 in your problem. So I have 1 0, so I'm going to write 1 0 in my product. So 4 times 10 is 40. If I want to find 4 times 100, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with my basic fact of 4 times 1, which is 4, and then I'm going to write 1, 2 zeros. So 4 times 100 is 400. So what would 4 times 1000 be? If you said 4000, you're correct. Let's take this a step further and find the product of some 2-digit numbers times 2-digit numbers. So if I were going to do 10 times 10, again I do my basic fact first, which is 1 times 1, which is 1. And then again I add a 0 for each 0 in the problem. So I have 1, 2 zeros. So I need to add 2 zeros to my product. So 10 times 10 is 100. If I have 10 times 20, it works the same way. I do the basic fact first. 1 times 2 is 2. And then I write a 0 for each 0 in my problem. I have 2 zeros, so I have 2 zeros in my answer. So 10 times 20 is 200. So what would 10 times 30 be? If you said 300, you're exactly right, because it would be 1 times 3, which is 3, and then you add the 2 zeros from your problem. Open your math book to page 197 and then join me in the video. On page 197, you're going to see examples 1 and 2. Let's look at example 1 now. The whale shark is the world's largest fish. Its mouth is 5 feet long and each foot contains 600 teeth. How many teeth does a whale shark have? We need to find 5 times 600. We can use basic facts and patterns. 600 is a multiple of 10. So I can start with the basic fact of 5 times 6, which is 30. And then I can move up a little bit. 5 times 6 is 30. And if I'm multiplying by 60, I need to add an extra 0. So 5 times 6 tens would be 30 tens or 300. Now I have 5 times 600. So I'm going to do 5 times 6, which is 30. And that would be 30 hundreds. So I need the 2 zeros from the hundreds. So a whale shark has 3,000 teeth. Notice that the product of 5 and 6, notice that the product is 5 times 6 with 2 zeros at the end. Let's look at example 2. We want to find 3 times 7,000. Now we could just jump down here if you're familiar with the pattern, but let's just review it a couple more times to make sure you have it. We're going to start with our basic fact, which is 3 times 7. 3 times 7 is 21. So if I want to find 3 times 70, again I'm going to do my basic fact first. 3 times 7 is 21, and then add 1 0. Because really it's 21 tenths. If I'm doing 3 times 700, I'm going to do 3 times 7, which is 21, and then add 2 zeros because it's actually 21 hundredths, so 2,100. Then if I want to do 3 times 7,000, again I'm going to do my basic fact, and then write 3 zeros because there's 3 zeros in my problem. So my final product would be 21,000. So 3 times 7,000 is 21,000. Notice that the product is 3 times 7 with 3 zeros at the end, because again, it's 21 thousandths. Let's look at example 3. This is at the top of page 198. The weight of a fire truck is 8 times 4,000 pounds. So what is its weight in pounds? Let W represent the weight and write an equation. So we could write this equation with the unknown, which is W equals 8 times, what are we trying to find? 4,000. So go ahead and write 4,000 in that blank space. Then you need to find 8 times 4,000. So we're going to start with just the basic fact of 8 times 4. 8 times 4 is 32. Good. So now I'm going to move up to the tens. Okay, 8 times 4 ones would be 32 ones, which equals 32. 8 times 40, again, I'm going to do my basic fact, which is 32. And then I'm going to put a 0. Because we're doing 8 times 4 tens, which equals 32 tens, which would be 320. For 8 times 400, I'm going to start with my basic fact. 8 times 4 is 32. And then I'm going to write my 2 zeros. What we're doing is 8 times 4 hundredths, which is 32 hundredths, which equals 3,200. Then we have 8 times 4,000. So we have 8 times 4 thousandths, which is 32 thousandths, which is written as 32,000 with 3 zeros, just like the 3 zeros of the 4,000 that we multiplied by. So to finish up that problem, you'll notice that the product is 8 and 4 with 3 zeros at the end. So it's 32 with 3 zeros at the end. Since 8 times 4,000 equals 32,000, W also will equal 32,000. So the weight of the fire truck is 32,000 pounds. Let's look at the types of practice problems you're going to be asked to do today. So for number 1 in the guided practice, you have 6 times 8 equals 48. So they're giving you a hint at what the answer is going to be for each of these. So 6 times 80, again, you're going to do that basic fact. 6 times 8 equals 48. And remember, this is 48 tens, so we need to add 1 0. When you do 6 times 800, again, you're starting with the basic fact of 6 times 8, which is 48. And you're multiplying by 100, so 48 hundredths. You need 2 zeros. And then they gave you the final answer. 6 times 8,000 is 48,000. Again, you're doing 6 times 8, and then you're adding the 3 zeros for the 1,000. Go ahead and try number 2 by yourself. If you haven't pause the video and do your work. Okay, check your answers for number 2. Now we're going to move down to number 3. For number 3, you're going to use mental math. So you have 8 times 600. Remember, start with that basic fact. 8 times 6 is, and it's 4,800 because you're multiplying by hundreds, so you need to put the 2 zeros. So the product is going to be 4,800. Go ahead and try number 4. Again, pause the video if you haven't. Okay, go ahead and check your answer for number 4. Great job. In today's lesson, you learned how to multiply with multiples of 10, 100, and 1000. Remember, you multiply the basic fact first, and then you add the number of zeros that you need.